Hello there, Collector Guys today is hanging out at the Austin Toy Museum, and here we are with Caleb Zabman, the executive director of the Austin Toy Museum.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
And this place is amazing.
Oh,
it's
thank
awesome.
you very much.
Tell us a little bit about this place.
Well, it started as a project about 5 years ago. A group of collectors came together and we just talked about putting all our collections in a space in Austin to display for the public. And eventually several collectors came in, several dropped out, but we eventually got a location, started a nonprofit, and now we have a toy museum in Austin.
Nice, nice. Now, at Collector Guys, we're all into collecting, you know, and so if this is part of your collection, what was ground zero? What got you going?
Well, I started with the hand-me-downs from my brother, like the late 70s, early 80s Star Wars toys. So I started with New Hope and then Empire Strikes Back, and slowly we just got all of that. And I completed my Star Wars collection, and then I went into like Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, just slowly moved down the line of all the popular and third tier, second tier 80s toys, and then went into 70s, 60s.
So what was the point where you said, okay, my collection is so big, I need to put this in a museum?
When it was taking over my whole house. I had like 2 rooms in my house. One was filled with video games, one was filled with toys. My garage was filled with toys. So lots of people would come over and they'd be like, oh, you should start a toy museum. And I was a teacher at the time, so I was like, yeah, I think I want a different job, just kind of change things up a little bit.
Running this museum is a full-time job for you?
Yes, now it's a full-time job.
So when I came in and you're playing Pogs with one of the younger employees,
That's my job.
That's your job. That's work for you.
Teaching people about Pogs and older toys that people have either forgotten about or didn't know about or just need to remember so they can revisit their childhood.
If you had to pick out like the 5 coolest things here, what would you say?
Ooh, we have X-Men #1. That's in storage right now. We are not displaying it. But we have prototype Lionel from Thundercats, and that was actually rescued out of a dumpster in LJN in the 1980s. And then we have some very early prototype drawings from various toy lines like Sectars and He-Man. We have every vintage Star Wars toy from the 1970s and 80s. That's one of my favorites.
They're all here?
Yes, and some of the rare video games. We have like the first Nintendo, which was Nintendo TV Channel 6, which most people don't know about. Any sort of first toy, like the first Play-Doh set, or first Treasure Trolls, like people don't know about Damn Trolls, and he's kind of forgotten.
I've never seen those before. Speaking of the Star Wars, we'll go over and take a look at your diorama here. This is pretty awesome. Now you have a lot of awesome dioramas here. This one's super cool. Tell us about this.
This is Empire Strikes Back Hoth battle scene with most of the Hoth toys from the 1980s, and even some rare mail orders and various things, but it has the play sets and most of the ships, and we even have a Rebel base hidden underneath here.
Right. So when you had this stuff at home, did you have the dioramas too, or is this something you made just for the museum?
I had early variations of the dioramas, so they were much smaller, compacted into my house, but once we got here, we were able to spread our legs out a little bit and create larger dioramas. This was mostly made by volunteers for the museum. Yeah. There's nothing particularly rare in this display, but it does have my Wampa from when I was little. Me and my brother got that for one Easter, so that's one of my favorites.
That's the sentimental value of this.
And of course it has the Tauntaun where you can stick Luke in the stomach and you can pretend like Han cut him open. And then the AT-ATs are always great fun, and they're rigged to a button on the other side so people can see their little chin guns moving when they get pressed.
You have a really cool G.I. Joe display over here. Let's go take a look.
All right.
Here we are at your G.I. Joe exhibit. Now, my era, the 60s and the 70s, we had the big G.I. Joes. Now, I know very little to nothing about this size. Can you tell me a little bit about the transition from the big ones to this? How did this all come about?
Yeah, in the 1960s they had the 12 inches, and those continued on to like the 1970s when they started doing Action Team. And then after that they had a line called Super Joe, which went kind of down to the Mego scale, which was about 7 inches. That lasted a very short time. And then the 3 3/4 kind of came out of like Star Wars went down to 3 3/4, so G.I. Joe decided when they came out with a real American hero that they would do that also, to kind of scale it down. Originally the line was only made to sell the vehicles, and the figures were like kind of little accessories, but the figures and the characters that they created, like Snake Eyes, became really popular, so that's where most of the line went, like selling all the figures, and continued all the way into the early, mid-90s.
Now, was this pushed by a cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon?
Yeah,
or?
first it started as a Marvel comic, the G.I. Joe. It was written by Larry Hama. And then they also had the cartoon, which helped push the line along and work as a commercial after the deregulation of cartoons in the early 80s.
Sure. Now, up top here we have the Accessory Hall of Fame. Tell us about this aircraft carrier.
The U.S.S. Flagg was the largest toy ever made, and it's 7 feet long. It came with one action figure, and it was awesome. Me and my brother got it for one Christmas. This isn't the same one, but we ran into the living room and there was this humongous box that looked like the size of a skyscraper to a 5-year-old, and we just tore into the paper, and I'm sure lots of kids had the same experience when they got the Flagg.
Yeah. So what happened to the original?
Our original one was, unfortunately, when we moved to Texas, it got thrown in a burn pile by my grandfather, who said we had too much stuff.
Oh, that's terrible. Now, it's hard to come across these now, isn't it?
Yeah, they're pretty rare. In the box, they can be anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000.
Wow.
And loose, they can be, depending on how complete it is, can be anywhere from $500 to $1,000.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things here. Caleb, thank you for letting us hang out in the Austin Toy Museum. If you didn't know it, you have the best job ever.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for coming out and playing with toys.
Cool. Thank you for watching, Collector Guys, and remember, surround yourself with what you love.